Winnie, if you're there, I've logged in, but I'm not allowed to turn my camera on. It's Kevin. Oh, there we go.
Hello.
Still says unable to start video. You can't start your video because the host has stopped it. So you've got you have a default image of me there, but you're not seeing me live.
Okay.
Winnie, if you're there, I've logged in, but I'm not allowed to turn my camera on. It's Kevin.
Okay.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah, are you able? Hang on. Hello.
Still says unable to start video. You can't start your video because the host has stopped it.
That's
So
interesting.
You have a default image of me there, but you're not seeing me live.
Okay. Let me.
Winnie, if you're there, I've logged in, but I'm not allowed to turn my camera on.
Okay.
Oh, hearing repeats of audio of things I said a minute ago. This is very weird. You know what I'm going to do, Winnie? I'm going to log out and log back in.
Okay.
For what it's worth, I'm getting the same notice when I try to turn my video on to test.
That is interesting. Here, let me. So Riley, I just made you host, and I think the attendees are having issues turning on their video. Riley, if you can help me troubleshoot that.
Yeah, sure. I'll look into
your video.
Yeah, so my video seems to be working
Winnie, fine.
as a panelist.
Can you see my video?
Yes.
Okay. So we need to see Mayor McEwen. Let me.
It's a message I've never seen before on Zoom. I didn't know you could lock out a video.
So I know Zoom has changed some of its features. So maybe this is one of them.
I could try making him the a co-host.
I promise to behave if you do.
Okay, well, I changed the settings on Zoom, so hopefully.
Now,
there you go. Maybe that was what it was. Okay.
Well, at the same time you did that, all of a sudden I got a message saying that I'm a co-host. So.
Oh, okay. So I don't know which one it was.
But either one, it worked. So we're here.
Yes.
Now, if we're going to be able to see the other participants, we got to figure it out for them too.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, I'm not able to share my video still.
All right.
So it seems like when I make someone a co-host, it allows video sharing. But then I withdrew that from Mayor McEwen. The video is still there. So Chelsea, can you try sharing video now?
Yep.
Yes. So Riley, if you can just go one by one. We
Sure.
have Council Member Mike Bonin.
Hello.
Hello, welcome. We have, I forget it, but I think it's Vice Mayor, right? Vice Mayor Wunderlich.
Right, and my I'm getting a message saying that my video isn't being allowed by the
oh, you know what?
coordinator for the meeting.
Yeah. Okay, now everyone try to start a video. Yay! I think I just need to click on that button.
Okay.
There I am.
Perfect. Great. Cecilia will be joining very shortly.
So I'm withdrawing co-host permission from the board members, but that's just so there's less,
Yeah.
I guess, wrinkles in the.
Well, that'll keep us out of mischief too.
Yeah, well, our job is to control the mischief, so that should be fine.
Vinny, will you have the presentation up on your screen?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
So as we're waiting for Cecilia, our executive director, as well as our legal counsel, and maybe some additional board members, if you have received an email, sorry, I'm gonna have to mute some people, just to avoid some background noise. If you have received an email from our listserv, you should have received a link to our supplemental materials. If not, it is listed on our website. Hi, Cecilia.
Send out the news story about the seeking funds. I still haven't seen that come in.
Yes, so the supplemental materials that I sent out this morning has that article at the very end. All right. I am waiting for our legal counsel. But I think we have a quorum.
Okay.
Do we need to have our legal counsel present to begin the meeting? I know in Santa Monica, we do have to have the city attorney present.
I don't know that we have that in our bylaws or anything. We can wait a bit longer.
Well, then it's being noon, and with the understanding that all of our time is valuable. And by the way, I know what a tough time this is in all of our individual jurisdictions. So I really appreciate that we each take the time to come to these meetings for WSCCOG. I'll open now the, October 8th meeting of the West Side Cities Council of Governments. And let's just start. Since there's no venue to thank somebody for letting us visit in, we're out here in cyberspace. Let's just start by going around the room and identifying ourselves. If you are the voting delegate for your jurisdiction, please say so that we have a record of that. And we'll begin to my left. Somebody decide who's to my left, okay?
Okay. Why don't we start? I see Alex Fish to your left.
I'm not the voting member today, but hello, everybody. So I'll pass it to Megan Sally Wells.
Megan Sally Wells, Culver City Council and voting member for Culver City.
Then I see Fernando to your right, Kevin.
Hi, Fernando Morales, voting delegate for Supervisor Sheila Kilo at the County of Los Angeles.
Bob Wunderlich.
I'm Bob Wunderlich, Vice Mayor of Beverly Hills and a voting member.
John Heilman with a snazzy background.
Hi, John Heilman, West Hollywood Mayor Pro Tem, and I'm the voting delegate.
Mike Bonin.
Hi, Mike Bonin, Los Angeles City Council voting delegate. And I'm not sure if I'm to Kevin's left or not, or to Megan's. I think we're all in about the same space.
So nice to have you, Mike. We have Megan. I see Steve Liu next.
Hi, this is Steve Liu with the City of Los Angeles, Office of the Chief Legislative Analyst.
Great. Aaron Kunz.
Yes, Aaron Kuntz, City of Beverly Hills Transportation.
Debbie Diner Harris.
Debbie Diner Harris. I'm Council Member Paul Koretz's District Director, Council District 5.
A very dark Jay Greenspan.
Sorry, I'm Jay Greenstein. I'm Transportation Deputy for Councilmember Paul Koretz.
Lauren Langer.
Hi, Lauren Langer with Best and Krieger and Counsel for the COG. And I just want to let everybody know a little bit later in the meeting, I'm going to have to sign off because I'm presenting at the League of California Cities Conference. And so my colleague Jane Abzug is going to participate for the rest of the meeting.
Thanks, Lauren. Mary Strand.
Yes, Mary Stren is here. I'm with the ICMA and the League of California Cities.
Thank you, Mary. Shelley Wolfberg. You're on mute, Shelley.
I'm sorry. Shelley Wolfberg, Assistant to the City Manager, City of Culver City.
Great. Eric Bruins.
Eric Bruins, I'm Councilmember Mike Bonin's Transportation Director.
Great. Chelsea Richer.
Hi, everybody. This is Chelsea Richer. I'm with Farron Piers on a consultant team helping with the MSP.
Riley O'Brien.
Hello, everyone. This is Riley O'Brien, analyst with the Westside Cities COG.
Helen Chin.
Hi, everyone. This is Helen Chin with the City of Culver City, Assistant to the City Manager on Homelessness.
Great. Stephanie Venegas.
Hi, everybody. Stephanie Venegas, Council on Legislative Affairs for the City of Santa Monica.
Thanks, Stephanie. Cindy Owens.
Hi, everybody. Cindy Owens, Policy and Management Analyst with the City of Beverly Hills.
Patrick Chandler.
I'm Patrick Chandler with Metro Community Relations.
Great. David Fenn.
Hi, everyone. This is David Fenn in Long Range Planning with the City of West Hollywood.
Elizabeth Rosen. Don't know the last half of your name. It's not showing up.
It's because my first name is too long. Elizabeth Rosenson with Ariano Associates on the consultant team for the MSP.
Thanks, Elizabeth. Gabriela Yap.
Hi, everybody. Gabriella Yap, Deputy City Manager for the City of Beverly Hills.
Great. Ashley Hefner Hong.
Hefner Huang, City of Culver City's Advanced Planning Manager.
Then I have Lauren Meister. Ooh, moving around. Okay.
Yes, I'm here. City of West Hollywood Council member, not a voting delegate, but your representative on the CEHD committee for SCAG.
Thank you. Josh Kerpels.
Josh Kirpies from Assemblymember Richard Bloom's office.
Diana Chang.
Hi, this is Diana Chang, a Transportation Planning Manager with the City of Culver City.
Jane Abzug.
Hi, I'm Jane Abzug with Best and Krieger and Council for the COG.
Martha Eros.
Hi there, Martha Arrows, Transportation Planning with the City of Beverly Hills.
And the last on my screen is Sarah Patterson.
Hi, Sarah Patterson, LA County Regional Affairs Officer for SCAG.
Excellent.
Well, thank you, Cecilia, for taking charge of that, because we have almost 40 people here, and we also have some people probably watching on YouTube. We know you're out there, but we really can't see you. I believe with that, we going around the room, we have confirmed that we have a quorum of voting delegates. Is that the case?
That is correct.
So we will now move forward with our action items, section 3 of our agenda. And the first is the approval of the draft meeting notes from our last meeting in August. And there was one request I had made to insert that I had supported West Hollywood's request for the extension of the Crenshaw line, as John Howman had been talking about. That wasn't in the minutes. I'd like it to be in there. Are there any other changes or additions to the minutes?
With that change, I'll move
That
the.
it has been made. Is that right, Cecilia? That's been
Correct. We
inserted.
will make that change, Mayor McKeon.
Kevin, with that change, I'll move we approve.
And I'll second the motion.
All right, we have a motion by West Hollywood, seconded by Culver City. And I see no further discussion, and this being an online, even the simplest thing takes a roll call vote.
Okay, let's do it. Go ahead, Winnie, if you want to call the roll by city, maybe that might be the best way to do it.
Yes, that's the easiest. City of Beverly Hills.
Yes.
City of Culver City.
Yes.
City of Santa Monica.
Yes.
City of West Hollywood.
Yes.
City of Los Angeles.
Yes.
And County of Los Angeles.
Yes.
Perfect.
All right, the August 13 minutes then are now approved unanimously. We can move on to item 3B. Mike Bonin, I'm glad you're with us because on this item, we've gotten a letter from some of your constituents concerned that the comment period had been extended, but that we were going to be making at least a preliminary decision tonight. So today, rather, I'm so used to meeting in the evening. Cecilia, do you want to update us on where this stands?
Yeah, I will. I'll do a brief overview, and then we do have a presentation by the consultant team. I know the board doesn't like lengthy presentations, but given the importance of this matter, I think it's important for them to go through the process as well as how we got here. So very, very briefly, as you know, we have an allocation through Measure M for 5 years, and we have gone through the process of updating our West Side Mobility Plan. We use that as the basis to create our 5-year plan for our multi-year sub-regional program. We've had a transportation task force that worked with Fair and Peers to develop the criteria and the allocation formula for how this money should be divided up. There was general consensus on the methodology from all of the members of all of the cities and jurisdictions on this. That was then each city kind of got its allocation and then proposed projects that met the readiness criteria that Metro set forth. We then circulated this list, not for very long, I will admit that, but all of these projects have gone through a public process in each respective city, pretty extensive public process to get this far. What we're proposing today is a preliminary list that we would like the COG to allow us to then forward to Metro. So Metro will have 60 days to review it and make sure that it meets the eligibility criteria. And then we will come to you in the December meeting with a final list. In those intervening 60 days, if something comes up short for some reason, whether we have no expectation that that will occur, then we can adjust and recirculate the list. And then we would bring you the final in December. And that would be the final action, which then gets forwarded to the Board of Metro. They do a staff report, and then we hope it will be approved early in 2021. And then we can start spending money. So that's in general the process. Winnie, is there anything else you'd like to add to that?
Nope, that's pretty much it. And you pretty much covered most of what Chelsea would be covering. In case, Chelsea, you want to provide any additional details. Meanwhile, I am going to share my screen to start Chelsea's presentation.
Yeah.
And that might answer questions that the board and staff may have.
And Chelsea, you know, I'm sure you've been warned many, many times. Board likes really brief presentations, though we know there are some key points you need to hit. And Chairman McEwen, I'm sure you'll let us know when we've exceeded your patience. Take it away, Chelsea.
Thank you. Well, with that opener, hopefully I can keep this brief. And that was a great preamble, Cecilia. I think a lot of what I have in the presentation will just provide a couple of more details, and you'll have this as a reference to go through on your own time if you'd like to double check or refer back to the details. So you can move to the next slide, Winnie. Today's presentation basically covers all of what Cecilia just mentioned, and we'll end with a discussion of the next steps. So the next slide, please. Great. So as Cecilia mentioned, this Measure M funding basically goes through a process that Metro has set forth in their administrative guidelines. It's pretty explicit and prescriptive. So a lot of what this process is basically the process that we're going through as a sub-region is just following what Metro's requirements are. In addition to what Cecilia just mentioned, I want to just point out that the multi-year sub-regional program for the West Side cities was established as the active transportation and first last mile program during the 2015 mobility matrix, and following that process as Measure M got adopted. So that was the first eligibility consideration, was it has to be within that category of active transportation and first last mile projects. The second thing I'll point out is that it is a 5-year programming plan, and this 5-year plan can be updated on an annual basis. So this programming list that we're going to share today goes through fiscal year 2024 and can be updated as soon as next year to program an additional year of funding. The process that we undertook as the West Side Cities COG and the consultant team supporting was to look at the distribution of funds based on Metro's 2019 cash flow update, which was a total of $27.3 million. And this is where we landed. And the next slide will show a couple of different options that we went through. But the one that we landed on was for service population, which is the share of population plus employment numbers across the West Side Cities region. So you can see the numbers there, what that translates to in terms of the percent of the total, and then how that is applied to the $27.3 million as it splits across the 6 jurisdictions. And then the next slide shows the 6 options that we considered really when looking at the question of how to equitably split the money across the jurisdictions. We looked at share of population, share of employment, share of service population, which is the combination of those 2 things. We also looked at share of transit riders, all collisions and KSI collisions. And you can see here that the service population column is right in between sort of the maximum and the minimum of the different ranges that might shake out across each of the jurisdictions. So it was the one that we felt most equitably reflected the different characteristics across the subregion, and that was the decision that the task force came to basically aim at their funding allocation for this project list. Next slide. So the preliminary project list, which you should have available in your packet in a larger format than what's on this slide, programs $26 million in pedestrian, bicycle, and first last mile projects. The funds have been programmed, as I mentioned, from 21 through 24. Fiscal year 20, of course, is over already. So we are programming 4 years of funds, but that same bucket, the funds do not expire. So they are just rolled over into the next fiscal year. And the County of LA decided to program their funds in the first annual update. So they actually don't have any projects on this list. It's just the 5 jurisdictions, the 5 city jurisdictions that were previously on the slide before. So that's why the total that's programmed is a little bit lower than the total that could be programmed in this cycle. You can go to the next slide. So the approach to the project list development, as Cecilia mentioned, really relied on first project eligibility set forth by Metro's criteria, and they do have that 60-day review period basically to ensure that all of the projects on the list meet that eligibility criteria. The other considerations that we made were things like the available project funds. 27.3 million is not that much when you split it across 6 jurisdictions. And of course, everyone on this call knows very well that the need for investment in the West Side on active transportation projects far exceeds the available funding through the MSP alone. So really looking at what projects could be implemented with this amount of funding, or what projects could be leveraged for additional funding sources like grant applications, and use this funding to sort of grow it into bigger opportunities to implement. The project list builds on lots of previous planning efforts by all of the jurisdictions. So all of the public engagement, stakeholder engagement that has been heard over the course of the years and even decades in some case of public input, stakeholder outreach has really been rolled up into these jurisdictional priorities, as well as some stakeholder input that we sought directly through the development of the mobility study earlier this year, and through this process, now we have the list open on the web platform. And then of course, project readiness is critical as well. Metro wants to fund projects that actually will get built, and that they feel confident in funding the projects that have demonstrated support from the communities, have demonstrated progress in their project development and design, and are really as shovel ready as possible. The graph on the right-hand side shows one of the web platform that we had available during the mobility study process. And some of the highest ranking projects that were on the project idea list are those that are bounded in yellow, have made their way onto this next, the MSP list, which is the first opportunity to implement and obtain funding following the adoption of the mobility study. So you can see that there are some projects on the list that are really high ranking from that mobility study process, which is, again, not the only stakeholder engagement that's been undertaken for this, but maybe the most recent, as it was in May 2020. Can move to the next slide. So the stakeholder platform that I just mentioned, we have open right now, and Cecilia mentioned is that short turnaround time. We have extended the date that we will keep the platform open until the 15th of October, which will fall within that period that Metro is reviewing the project list. And if we hear anything through that period, of course, that will factor into final decision and discussion in December. This opportunity, the platform provides the opportunity to basically click and pan around the map, click on the projects, see what project details there are, and also see sort of in a tabular format what the project list looks like and what jurisdictions are putting forward as their top priority first MSP list projects. So you can move to the next slide. So I just wanted to go through some of the feedback we've received to date. As Cecilia mentioned, we've received lots of, and as others have mentioned, we've received lots of comments, particularly via email about the Brentwood Walkability Improvements Project. We received, so this is as of October 6th, we have actually received 6 additional emails in the last day, all in support of the Brentwood Walkability Project with different levels of detail, basically saying they support it because it improves connectivity and accessibility for folks with disabilities, and have shared lots of details as to why they support. 4 of the initial 8 stakeholder emails that we received did express the desire for more information, some concern about the project details, concern about the timeline of the stakeholder platform being open for just a few days, and we've responded in extending that timeline. And then some have also just shared ideas for, you know, what the project design details should consider about that context, and how the department should move forward in designing those walkability improvements. 4 of the emails that we had received up through October 6th expressed support. Some of them also cited concerns with the existing crosswalks and existing infrastructure that was there. And then one of the emails also expressed the need for additional supportive policies for bicyclists, particularly things like the Idaho stop and lower speed limits through the neighborhood. We can move to the next slide. We also received 12 comments on the stakeholder platform. Again, this was pulled on October 6th, so it's possible that there's additional comments through that platform today. 5 of these comments expressed really strong support for all of the projects on the list. A few of them offered their own prioritization of the list in addition. 4 expressed support for additional projects and really reflected the need for additional priorities that they want to make sure are top of mind and high on the list for maybe the next annual update. 2 expressed broad concern about land use and transportation on the west side. They were not very specific, and it didn't really seem like they were particularly relevant to the project list, but just generally concerned about density and concerned about things that are happening on the west side, but in a non-specific way. And then 1 expressed concern about public safety as the primary reason why people don't use transit on the west side, feeling concerned for their own personal well-being, particularly riding transit. So that's something that's sort of peripherally related to the project list, but worth mentioning.
Let's see how much
the next couple of slides detail all of the stakeholder engagement and community engagement that has been underway at the jurisdictional level. Winnie, if you can click to the next slide.
Yeah, Chelsea, I think we got the signal from Kevin. He'd like us to wrap.
Oh, great. Okay, sorry, I can't see.
I'd like
I can't see
to get an
Kevin.
idea. I'd like to get an idea of how much more there is, because we've gone well.
Oh, sure. I have 2 more slides.
Okay, looks like we're good for that. Go ahead,
Great.
Chelsea.
Okay. So the additional stakeholder engagement for each project on the list has basically been brought through their own jurisdictional processes. So you may recognize some of these from your own city. Beverly Hills has had their complete streets plan workshops beginning in March 2018, and all of the streetscape and bus stop improvements have been discussed as part of that process. Culver City has brought their projects to City Council. There's been additional outreach that's anticipated through the project implementation window starting after the funding would be secured. And then additional detail in their pedestrian and bicycle, or the bicycle and pedestrian action plan, which was recently adopted earlier this year and has had outreach and specific engagement events dating back to 2017 as part of that process for the Washington facilities and for the Overland Bicycle Facility. And then just to move to the city of LA, Santa Monica and West Hollywood, all of their projects, just to make it real simple, I would say all of the projects that are on there from all of these 3 cities have been documented on prior planning documents like the pedestrian and bicycle action plans. In City of LA, the Expo Bike Path Gap has been included on many planning documents for many years. And some of the Santa Monica to Westwood connections were also adopted in the West LA TIMP, which has public engagement activities dating back almost a decade at this point. For Santa Monica, a lot of the projects are flagged as priority bicycle facilities in their priority action plans, as well as through project-specific design workshops that have been conducted for the Stewart Bicycle Facility, Pennsylvania Avenue Sidewalks, and others that are on their list. And then for West Hollywood, the Willoughby and Vista Neighborhood Greenway, which is the single project from West Hollywood, has been a priority project, was adopted in their pedestrian and bicycle plan in 2017. And has had additional design related engagement underway for the last 2 years or so. And I also just want to mention that the process that we have undertaken has been a bi-weekly meeting process where all of the staff across all of the cities that have been involved have really been dedicating quite a lot of time and energy to the development of this list. They've been going through their own internal processes within their own departments, coming back to meet as the group, really working through it and sort of in earnest and with dedication of a lot of staff time to work through this process under a short timeline so that we can really leverage and access that funding as quickly as possible. So I just want to give a big thanks to all of the task force members because it's been a quick timeline and a big lift, and really deserves a lot of kudos to everyone who's been involved in the process. So thank you for that. And then the next steps, as Cecilia mentioned on the next slide, are basically to keep the stakeholder platform open through the 15th of October. Metro's review process will be a 60-day process. We hope that they won't find anything ineligible on our list, but we do have the final adoption of the list scheduled for December, and then the final Metro board approval as soon as we can get on the agenda once that final adoption happens, which should be 30 to 60 days after that process, after that point.
Okay, thank you, Chelsea. That's very helpful. Let me make two salient clarifications. One is that unlike another item on our agenda later today, which is the SEP money, the equity program, this is not money in 2040 or 2045. This is immediate money. And the second thing is, because of the feedback we got from the Brentwood Homeowners Association about the extended deadline, I believe today what we should appropriately be doing is not, as it's listed, approve the COG preliminary list, but actually we should be preliminary approval of the preliminary list. So let's open discussion. Unless there's a reason to change the preliminary recommendation, then we will go ahead with the motion to make a preliminary recommendation on the preliminary list.
Thank you for the clarification.
I think, Chair, I think this is great. I really appreciate the process. And obviously these are all projects that our individual cities have been working on for quite a long time. I'm happy to make the motion for the preliminary to move forward.
I'll second it.
Actually, I have a question, if I can first.
Okay, for the record, we have a motion by Culver City, seconded by City of Los Angeles. And
can I pose a question before we vote?
Absolutely, please go ahead.
Thank you. So I'm looking at the schedule, and it says that Metro begins its 60-day review period on October 9th. And so that presumably ends roughly by December 9th. And then we're supposed to submit our final list on December 10th. And so what happens if there's a difference between this preliminary list and our final list?
Great question. We're in constant contact with our Metro rep. Fanny Pan is our staff person at Metro. We have asked that they look at the first years first, because that's money that's going to flow immediately, right? So if there's any concerns with the projects, we're going to find out immediately, and then we would go back to the city's working group to kind of take the next one on the list from that city. So there's a whole list of other projects, Councilmember, that each city has generated. It's just these are the first ones that are in the best position to meet that project readiness criteria. Chelsea, am I right? Is there anything else to add on that?
The only thing I'd add is that the schedule you just quoted was a tentative schedule based on sort of best process, and it's certainly possible that things will be delayed. Obviously, the platform doesn't close until the 15th. This has been mentioned, so we won't be sending anything along to Metro until after that point.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any other questions or discussion? Okay, we have a motion by Solly, seconded by Bonin, and we'll do a roll call vote. This will not be a preliminary vote, but
I just wanted to check with your staff, Mayor, if I think Francie is on the line. I'm not sure if you had a comment or wanted to speak.
Thanks, Bunny. Yeah, this is Francie. I mean, I think we should go ahead and take a preliminary. I think we should move forward. I think everyone has identified that there's plenty of steps for refinement. I do think that when we are looking at one of the downsides of the service population choice that was made at the very last discussion was that it undercut some of the destinations that all of us are for a broader region and some of the transit things. But I think that there's time in the upcoming revisions that we treat this as a fluid process as we have annual update options and continue to look at that as we move forward.
Thanks, Francie.
Okay, let's call the roll, Winnie.
Okay, City of Beverly Hills.
Yes.
City of Culver City.
Yes.
City of Santa Monica.
Yes.
City of West Hollywood.
Yes.
City of Los Angeles.
Yes.
And County of Los Angeles.
Yes.
Thank you.
So that preliminary approval goes ahead by unanimous vote. Let's just move on to item 3C on our agenda, which is an appointment to which is the last I knew, we had not yet gotten any letters of interest. And I've been soliciting interest from my colleagues on the Santa Monica City Council. I would ask that others do the same. And unless there's some pressing reason to go ahead with a nomination from the floor of somebody who hasn't sent a letter of interest, I would suggest that we make this decision at our next meeting in December. Is there any discussion on that, or?
Yes, Chair McCune, I completely agree. And as somebody who has long served on the Energy and Environment Committee, there's been some really important work. So I highly recommend it for either those present or your colleagues. Also, it occurs to me that, you know, there's an election coming up and we will have our vote. That will be my last vote while I'm still in office before I term out. But possibly this gives an opportunity for others who will be newly elected, sorry for the phone, to step up and give their letters as well. So it's something that we all should be mindful of in encouraging all of our colleagues to serve in this capacity. Again, it's a very, it's a worthy committee.
Well, you and I both serve on the board of the Clean Power Alliance, so we know how important this is. Now, Cecilia, do we need to actually take a vote to postpone this till December?
No, you can just direct us to extend the nomination process, and then we can do that in the December meeting.
Let me just make sure there's no objection to our doing that from any of the voting delegates. Seeing none, then let that direction be given.
Great.
And we will move on to item 3D, which is a COG alternate to the Metro
PAC.
Yeah,
Yeah, the Policy Advisory Council. So we have received one letter of interest, David Fenn from the City of West Hollywood, and then recently received another letter of interest from Francie Steffram from the City of Santa Monica. Again, the PAC meets quarterly, and I'm the designated representative, but it's really nice to have an alternate, important to go. It's a great place to get wind of the latest happenings in Metro. So we have two candidates before you, and we just need to have a vote on who will be the appointee.
Well,
Kevin.
Oh, okay, John, go ahead.
Yeah, David Fenn communicated with me earlier in the day, and you know, we know Francie, she's fantastic. So if she's prepared to do it, I think we would be comfortable with that.
I was about to say I have worked with Francie for many years, and tremendous.
After you stole her from us.
Fair and square. And I think you have a few of ours too, John. So it goes
yes.
Both ways. Well, then, was that a nomination for Francie?
Yes, I'll move that we approve Francie as the alternate representative.
And I will happily second that motion. Are there any other nominations? Any discussion? Okay, we have to do a roll call. We're on a telecom. So, Winnie?
City of Beverly Hills?
Yes.
City of Culver City?
Yes.
City of Santa Monica?
Oh, I'm sorry, you sort of got garbled there. I think you said Santa Monica, and in that case, the answer is yes.
City of West Hollywood,
Yes.
City of Los Angeles,
Yes.
and County of Los Angeles.
Yes.
So congratulations, Francie. That is unanimous. And that allows us to move on to our executive director's report, item 4 on the COG agenda.
Okay, speaking of appointments, sadly, our friends from the city of Culver City, Megan Sully Walls and Thomas Small, council members, their terms are ending this December. So we're seeking to fill their positions as the West Side COG representative to a couple of SCAG committees. And wanted to make the COG aware of that. So we're looking for a few things. One is our SCAG Regional Council District number 41 representative. And what we have proposed is to have nominations open, let's see, through November 6th, that first week in November, very important. And second, we also have a position open on the Transportation Committee, and that would run from January 2021 until December 2023. The Regional District representative would go from January to May to finish the rest of Councilmember Sally Wells' term as regional representative, and then in May, we'd have to vote again for another 2-year term. So it's a short-term appointment, but then there would be a chance to renew in May. So again, our proposal is that we'd like to close the deadlines for letters of interest on November 6th, and then bring those letters to your board here in our December board meeting and have a vote then. Okay, any questions on that?
I think we're clear on that process.
Okay, that one's easy. Okay, I guess we'll move on to item 5, the transportation update. Is that okay?
But nothing else to update us on as our executive director. Everything's just going swimmingly.
Well, you're going to hear about, it is going swimmingly. You're going to hear about some of the other stuff we've been working on. Essentially, we've been spending a ton of time on transportation issues, on housing issues and homelessness, and you're going to hear about those in the remainder of our reports.
Just wanted to make sure you had time to tell us whatever you needed to tell us. So yeah, we'll move on to the transportation stuff, if you would. Okay, so we'll move on to transportation. You'll recall that at our last meeting, we had an extended discussion about the SEP program, the Metro Sub-Regional Equity Program. In fact, our chair, McEwen, asked that the minutes be changed to reflect his agreement with West Hollywood's proposal. So at the time at our last meeting, you directed us to send a letter to Metro asking that as the Metro staff puts together their recommendations on criteria on how this SEP funding is to be spent and allocated and all of that process, that they make sure that our priority projects here in the West Side and our priorities generally are eligible for expenditures from that fund. So we did submit that letter. Metro staff is still working on those guidelines. We expect that they're going to propose those draft guidelines to the Metro board by the end of this year, maybe the beginning of next year. And then once we have those guidelines, we'll certainly bring them back to this board. Again, these are funds that would not be made available until 2046. So we have a little bit of time to figure out how we want to assess our priorities there. I think we'll all be termed out by then.
The last item, as you'll see on the staff report for the transportation updates, is the Metro Traffic Reduction Study, formerly known as the Congestion Pricing Feasibility Study, but its new name is much more sexy. So that is now just started. Outreach for that has just started, and we'll provide you updates at our next meeting. And that's really it. Winnie, anything else you want to add on the transportation working group?
No, I know Riley is on the line. Anything else to add, Riley?
No, nothing I can think of.
Okay. Okay, if I move on to the next item.
Sure.
Okay, so next we have the housing update. Quite a bit going on here. As we mentioned at our last board meeting, the West Side COG is going to be receiving $340,000 for the Regional Early Action Planning, or REAP program, from SCAG, and that amount is pegged to our RENA numbers as a subregion. So that money can be used for planning related activities to support the development of housing elements and accelerate the production of housing. The housing staff of your respective cities have been working really closely to figure out how to spend that money, what our application will be before. So we have a proposal to include studies that will result in the adoption of regulatory changes of existing policies so we can increase housing production and as well as address racial disparities in the West Side region. So you'll see in the staff report 4 different proposals. The idea is that we will apply for the full amount of money and it'll be spent on these 4 different studies. Councilman Heilman, we know how allergic you are to studies, but this is actually what we're supposed to be spending the money on, kind of foundational studies that will enable your staff to make the regulatory changes they need or would like to accelerate the production of accessory dwelling units, for example, or permit streamlining, a variety of angles. So I'll stop there and let Winnie or anybody else, I know we've got some of the housing task force members on this call if they want to chime in from the respective cities, but I'll stop there and pause for any questions.
Yeah, so we submitted our preliminary application to receive the first tranche of money this year. We received updates from or comments from SCAG, so we're refining those studies. And I just want to thank your city's housing staff. We've been working very closely together, meeting bi-weekly to now monthly to put together and identifying what are the gaps between our cities in our housing element work and our housing efforts. And I know some of our housing staff people are also at the meeting. Feel free to chime in, give me comments.
And this is not an action item, it's just an update and a report, but we want to make sure there are no surprises if we are able to get this funding, that this is how it will be spent.
Yeah.
No questions?
Yes.
Heilman's hand up if
okay.
That was a question.
Well, I don't know if it's a question or more of a comment. And in terms of the item regarding ADUs, I am very skeptical of this. The state has passed all sorts of laws trying to make it easier to develop ADUs. And the reality is that most single family homeowners don't want ADUs in their backyard. And if they do, they're not going to be solving our housing crisis. I think that's not really an area where I think any studies are going to help us incentivize or produce more ADUs, because it requires the owners of those single family dwelling units to want them in their backyard. And with all of the incentives that have been passed, we still don't see a rush of people, eagerly saying, oh yes, I want an ADU to solve the housing crisis and I want it in my backyard. So I think this is a waste of time.
I think that there may be varying interest in varying jurisdictions. I know in Santa Monica, we actually have had quite a bit of interest in ADUs to the extent that we've had to put controls on their use for things like vacation rentals. And in fact, Tuesday night, we have another modification to our corporate rental law to allow them to be used, to allow ADUs to be used under certain circumstances. So I think some of us are seeing interest. Now, we may have larger lots in Santa Monica than you do in West Hollywood, for instance, and that may be a factor. But it may not be possible, John, to incentivize enough for ADUs to happen in West Hollywood. But I think on the West Side as a whole, a study of what we could do to get more ADUs built might make a difference in at least some of our jurisdictions. I hear your concern, and I share your aversion to more studies as opposed to spending money on actually creating housing. But I looked at the total amount of money for all 4 of these studies, and at least in my city, it would do less than build 1/2 of one affordable housing unit. So there it is.
And if I may add to that, I think the streamlining and is about making it easier, so perhaps more attractive to people. I know that in Culver City we've been doing a lot to encourage ADU production, especially with affordability covenants, so that we can get some of those key RHNA numbers that we need, both for compliance and also for the moral stance that it is of providing affordable housing. And so I know that, and Culver City is not unique in having some, kind of innovative strategies to make sure that we're encouraging this type of like gentle density within the framework of our existing neighborhoods. And so I think there are lessons to be learned from one another in order to move forward regionally in this form, particularly of housing production. But I fully understand that there are nuances in each of our respective cities.
Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry, Councilmember Highland.
Well, I was going to say that maybe as part of the study, we should look at how many ADUs have actually been permitted in the last 5 or 10 years in our jurisdictions. I suspect it's very few, and we should also probably include some kind of study of single-family homeowners to figure out how many of them are even potentially interested in these.
Yes, so one of the study is an ADU development capacity study, which will look into that.
Okay.
And I do want to point out, we have Sarah Patterson from SCAG. I think she wanted to comment.
Oh, I can just answer any questions if they come up, or I can try to the best ability. I just wanted to let you all know that I was here.
Okay.
Well, thank you for being a resource.
Okay, if there aren't any other comments or questions, shall we move on to the homelessness update, Mr. Chairman?
Yeah, that was an update, no action needed, so.
Correct. Okay, I'm going to toss the homelessness update actually straight to Winnie, who's been working very closely with the committee on this. Go ahead, Winnie.
Yes, so at the last meeting, we mentioned that we were seeking letters of interest for the Regional Homelessness Advisory Committee, also known as the RAC, who was previously filled by Elisa Ordina, City of West Hollywood or Santa Monica. We had contacted LASA, and they had informed us that they are currently holding off filling any vacancies at this time because they are reevaluating the RAC membership. So the meetings are public. There is one happening next month. So I will be attending on behalf of the COG and report back to the homelessness staff. And we'll keep you posted on what comes out of that evaluation of the membership. And secondly, we mentioned over the summer that we applied for a grant competition from the county, the Technology Innovation Fund, to fund a regional data platform called Project Connect for our West Side cities. And basically what that is, it's a platform to streamline regional homeless response in real time to a centralized data platform and allocate resources effectively. And this is something that we found as a critical need on the West Side that was piloted by Santa Monica, City of Santa Monica, and all our other cities are very interested in this. We were reached out by Metro's Homelessness Task Force. To backtrack, we did not receive the grant. So we are still very interested in pursuing funding for this platform. We met with Metro's Homelessness Task Force, who notified us that they have extended their outreach team, which was originally along the red and blue line. They have extended their homelessness outreach team to the Expo line. So we thought this might be a great opportunity to collaborate. And we mentioned this Project Connect app, including public agencies such as Metro. We presented to them and even did a live demo. They are very interested in this, and they advised us to provide and submit a proposal to the Metro Office of Extraordinary Innovation to see if they can fund this opportunity. Patrick Chandler from Metro is also at this meeting. He was also Yeah, was there anything else that you would like to add from on behalf of the Metro Homelessness Task Force?
Other than we really get the grant, Patrick, and you're going to help us at OEI?
I can neither confirm or deny anything, but I really wish you the best. No, but it was a really good meeting. And I think one of the things that Winnie just mentioned is that through the Office of Extraordinary Innovation, we have our unsolicited proposal process. And I know there's microtransit that's been a pilot in different parts of the county that actually came through that process. So hopefully this COG will be able to pull off the same with the program that's been, I guess, kind of piloted out of Santa Monica.
Thank you.
Meanwhile, we're looking all over any opportunity we can find to fund this pilot program for the West Side, as we have found this to be a very critical need from our task force. And that's it on the homelessness update. If you have any questions.
I'll just quickly want to recognize all the work that happens in the subcommittees, and our staffs are working hard on all of that, all of these really critical issues. And so I know it doesn't always, it kind of comes out in these, in report form, but I know the conversations and the collaboration that's happening between these meetings is really significant. And I know personally from Culver City, it's been extremely helpful. So I just want to highlight that and applaud all those who are on this call who are doing that work.
I have a next step kind of a question. One of the most painful things that we had to do in Santa Monica because of our budget problems when we adopted a new budget in June was to let Elisa go. She had been the RHAC representative for us, and I see here that the RHAC wants us to hold off on making appointments, but there's a meeting on November 5th. So if they decide at that point to again open up for appointments, will you be notifying the board? Will we be doing a decision at our December meeting, or will that probably get kicked off into February? Do you have an idea yet?
I'm not sure when. I don't know if the item will be on the November meeting. I'll have to check the agenda, but yes, I will keep the board apprised of if we need to appoint and when.
Obviously, one of the crucial shared issues that we've worked together on for so many years, and I don't want us to miss a step here in moving policy forward. Mm-hmm. Thanks.
Yeah, and our staff will be attending that meeting on November 5th, so we'll be on top of it. And if it looks like we have a chance to appoint a representative, we will certainly let you know and bring it to the board in December.
Thank you.
That's it on homelessness. On legislation on item 8, our League of Cities representative is not available today. So Jeff's not here, so I don't know if there are any other points folks want to raise on legislation, but we didn't have anything to report there.
I'm also looking if Josh is still here. Kirby's from Assemblymember Bloom's office.
He is.
Yeah, I'm still here. I don't have much to report other than if you need us, we're here.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Josh.
Well, that's probably our briefest legislative report in a long time. We're open now for announcements. That would be announcements from the board. And then we'll ask if there are any announcements from other people who are here. Any board members have any announcements? John?
Well, not really an announcement, but I think we should thank Megan for all her incredible service to the COG and to her community and to the broader region. Thank you for everything you've done. You've been a champion and we will miss you.
I opposed term limits on the ballot 2 years ago here in Santa Monica and I lost. But I don't feel as bad about term limits in Santa Monica as I do about term limits in Culver City, because you should have at least been with us for another 4 or 8 years. Will you be with us for the December meeting, or is this literally your last meeting?
I will be with you. We have to ratify the election, and so it's like mid-December that I will be an official has-been.
Well, so we'll hold off on the tearful goodbye. I'm glad John brought up the issue because you've been such a valued member of this body and have represented Culver City so well and so effectively. And we really do appreciate that. We'll
All right,
in a couple of months.
Thank you. And Alex, who's been attending the meetings and who is my alternate, is fantastic as well. You will find him to be a very worthy partner. So I'm glad he's been attending the meetings and is caught up on our major issues. And thank you, everybody. I appreciate that. I did, because I wanted to mention, because of the term out, that I've been, Kevin, I've been your alternate on the Santa Monica Bay Restoration Commission. You go to all the meetings, so I'll go occasionally just to check in and see what's going on. But we'll need to find another alternate for you, even though you do have perfect attendance. So that should be, I don't know what the regular cycle is, but that'll need to be attended to.
Just to dangle the issue that may be of interest, what is pending is the Bayona so-called restoration plan. And it's not exactly clear how much influence the Santa Monica Bay Restoration Commission is going to have on that. But we have a voice and we are a forum for people. And I think it's a very important issue for the West Side. So there's a reason why you might want to consider replacing Megan as its alternate. Are there any other comments or announcements from board members? Okay, Cecilia, so what about future meetings? Gosh, well, I think I know where we're going to be.
Yeah, me too. So we don't have to worry about finding a location. We're here virtually, but you'll note from the agenda packet, our next meeting is December 10th. I want to actually thank Councilmember Bonin. I mean, Zoom is terrific. We're getting folks to participate. It's really nice to have you here, Mike. I know Zoom makes it easier for you to join us.
Zoom makes attending everything easier, but the downside is you have to go to more stuff.
So just to recap, in our meeting in December, we're going to talk about the final list of MSP projects. We'll also be, I hope, appointing our SCAG Regional Council representative, Transportation Committee representative, hopefully Energy and Environment Committee representative, and maybe even the Santa Monica Bay Restoration Committee alternate appointment. So we'll have an agenda, quite a number of action items. That's all I have. And I think, did you want to note, Mr. Chairman, about the article that you had us send around on funding for small cities?
It was in the supplemental packet. And let me just briefly say that we cities got the short end of a short stick on federal funding. There hasn't been enough. We were lobbying hard for the new HEROES Act, which the president has apparently killed. We cities are the place where federal funding turns into services to residents. And our city, like everybody else, has had to cut services and postpone projects we had because of the shortage of money. And not only has the money been scarce, but the distribution has been a bit sketchy. And especially those of us in the smaller cities have gotten a lower per resident amount than some of the larger cities have gotten. So through both the US Conference of Mayors and the California Mayors Coalition, I've been advocating for more funding and more equitable funding. And there was a front page story about that in the Santa Monica Daily Press that I put into to the packet. And those may include some talking points you can use as well, because clearly in this battle to get federal funding, we're all in it together. And you know, my city hall does not have a printing press in the basement where we can print money. Only the federal government can do that. So we have to hope that there'll be a change of attitude, among other things, in Washington, and we need to press hard to get our cities funded because it's our residents who are suffering. That was that announcement. With that, because we're meeting online, it sort of changes the dynamic, but as a public body, we still very much want and respect public comment on what we do. So Cecilia and Winnie, have we received any electronic comment for this meeting?
I will defer that to Riley, who's been monitoring that. Riley?
We did not receive any public comment.
Well, it doesn't mean we didn't care. For future reference, you can certainly address us via email It's obviously difficult to do the usual kind of public comment as long as we're required to meet by teleconference. It looks like we'll be doing that for a while. If there are no further comments from any of the board members, I think we have actually ended our meeting earlier than we usually do. It's just before 1 o'clock. And seeing no requests for further comment, I'll adjourn this October 8th meeting of the Westside Cities Council of Governments. And we'll see you all on December 12th. Thanks for being here. I really appreciate the fact you took the time to be here.
Thank you, Kevin.
Thanks, everyone. Stay safe. Nice to see you all.
Bye-bye.
Bye.